This is a translation and discussion of Aeneid, Book 4, lines 74 through 89. So let's go ahead and get started. We start out with our subject, Ducat, which is going to be the understood Dido. And so, now Dido leads, it's present tense obviously, if it were perfect tense it would be Duxit with an X, leads Aeneas in the accusative. It looks like that because obviously Aeneas is a loan word from Greek into Latin, and so it retains some of its Greek forms like we saw with Leakawanta. Nevertheless, she leads Aeneas with herself through the middle walls, and she shows, implied to him, the Sidonian works, the Sidonian resources, and another direct object of ostentat, she shows, implied to him, the city having been prepared. So essentially she's taken him on somewhat of a little tour of Carthage. And I think it's very important that indeed you have Ducat as the verb, is that she's the one that is leading him. She is the aggressor in this, what end up being a relationship. Nevertheless, she, incipit, she begins to speak. Remember that efari comes from that verb that we will see a whole bunch deponent, for fari fatus sum, which means to obviously speak. So she begins to speak, and she stops, she halts, she falters even in her middle voice. It shows her nervousness and how indeed in this crush that is developing it has the same sorts of reactions that necessarily even nowadays with especially young people. Nevertheless, and now she seeks, quire, the same. Remember, is Aeneid, which of course is going to either be he, she, it, him, her, it, they, them as a personal pronoun, or if it's modifying something, it turns into the equivalency of hikakok, this, or leila lud, that. But when you have dem on the end of isaid, it now is going to be the demonstrative that means same. And so now she seeks those same banquets, that same feeling that she had the first time when invited were all of the Trojans, and Aeneas obviously gave the story of the fall of Troy and his adventures up to the point of where he crashed out at Carthage. With the day gliding by, with the day moving on, so in the evenings obviously, and out of her mind she demands poscare again to hear those Trojan labors, Iliakos labores. Remember that the real name for Troy is Ilion or Ilium, and so therefore Iliakos is another word of saying Trojans. And again, so we have the repeated iterum for that anaphora, hammering home the point. She hangs on from the mouth of the one telling the story. We are substantizing narantis, this present active participle, and so it's as though she is hanging on his every word. Post ubi digressi, and afterwards, when they implied, having gone away. Remember that digressi is from gradi or gradi gressisum, so this is then going to become a perfect passive looking participle. And the obscura, and then your verb down at the bottom, or not verb, your noun that modifies is luna. And the obscuring moon, in turn, premits the light, in other words, when it becomes dark, and so you can see there is that luna and the premit, and the cadentia sidera, the falling stars, persuade sleeps late at night. She alone, domo wakawa, in an empty house, she grieves, she is sad, she is missing him, and she reclines, she lies down on sheets, having been left behind. Presumably what's being implied here is somewhat that therefore he's left behind his smell on these sheets, and she obviously in this state of very beginning of love, infatuation, she can do nothing else but to obviously dwell upon him and indeed think about him at all times. She, the absent one, both hears and sees him, that guy, being absent. So she can't get him out of her mind. Or she holds, de tenet, from teneo tenere. Remember, when you put a prefix on a verb, very often it will turn the vowel from what it was originally, which was e teneo tenere, to obviously an I. We see this all the time. She holds Ascanius in her lap, by with because of from in on act. She, having been captured by the image of the father. And so it is on, obviously, the face of little Ascanius that she can see Aeneas, because they, being related, father and son, are probably going to look rather similar. If, and so here we have the protasis, which is the if clause of a conditional. Remember that when you have present subjunctives in the conditional, which is of course what we have here, sim, sis, sit, sim, sit, sint, it is a future less vivid, and you translate it should and would. If she should be able to deceive an unspeakable love. Remember that indeed these are her emotions, and it is being emphasized she cannot control them, but it's an unspeakable love, because remember her vow never to be involved with a man again after the death of her husband Zacchaeus, and in many ways she is married to Carthage, she's married to her people, but she still cannot control these feelings that she has, and so that's what makes it unspeakable. She can't come out and say her love and her devotion and her wish to marry Aeneas perhaps eventually, simply because she would break that vow and obviously almost betray the people to whom she is truly wedded. Nevertheless, and then of course in lines 86 through 89 you see the real problem with this budding love and this budding infatuation, in that the towers, having been begun, do not rise. And so therefore she had begun building her city, but now she's too busy thinking about Aeneas, she's too busy hanging out with Aeneas, that indeed the work on the city is coming somewhat to a halt. She is betraying her people. And the youth, they do not exercise their arms, their weapons. They are not training, which of course they have to be or should be at all times. And since we have the noun and a we out, which would mean either or, we're going to then negative it, or make it negative, in which obviously is going to be, and neither do the harbors, nor do the ramparts, the secure ramparts, they do not prepare for war. And so all of these things that she had been building, the towers, the army exercises, the harbors, the ports, and the ramparts, those secure ramparts, they do not prepare for war. The works, having been interrupted, hang, as in they are left hanging, que, and the towers, like minarets in a mosque, and of course you can translate minai as minarets if you would like, and they're described as huge, and the huge minarets of the walls, these would be the towers all along the walls that you would have as defense positions, and the machine equaled to the sky, hang in the balance. All of this stuff, and this would be presumably things like cranes and the help of construction. That's why necessarily equaled to the sky. And so the huge major problem is that when she is infatuated with Aeneas, all of the building of the city, all of her leadership that should be going on, it unfortunately grinds to a halt. So keep studying a new section on the syllabus this year in 2025-2026 for the first time in about 20 years. It used to be on the syllabus, but it has not been over the last decade plus. But I'm glad it's back. It's a great section. Thanks for studying. Keep it up.